I am Sister Kimberly Rose Prohaska, the Vocation Director for our monastery. Here with me is Sister Christine Eckart, who will be sharing her thoughts and a little of herself as a woman who answered the call to be a Benedictine sister of St. Scholastica Monastery at Fort Smith. Welcome, Sister Christine.
Thank you, Kimberly. I'm happy to be here this morning to be sharing some of my thoughts about the monastery and this kind of life with all of you. It's been a privilege to be here. I'm happy to be here.
Sister Christine, I understand you are a native of Subiaco.
Right. I was born in the big village of Subiaco, Arkansas, and I grew up in that village until I was 16 years old. And when I was 16 years old, I left for this monastery. So there wasn't much to that, was it?
I think that's wonderful.
But I want to tell you something though about Subiaco. Well, maybe I don't have to say it now, but Subiaco was a wonderful place to grow up because I was in a Catholic environment and a monastic environment. We lived within a stone's throw from the monastery, and we spent a lot of our time up with the monks, and that was a lot of fun to grow up that way.
Can you tell me a little bit about your parents and your family?
Well, my father's parents came from Wisconsin, and my mother's parents came from Germany. So we were very German. My father was Joe Eckart, and my mother was Anna Adams Eckart. And they were really good, honest Catholic people. And we grew up in a home where we knew we were loved, we knew we were wanted. We didn't have to sit around and wonder whether our parents wanted us or not. And that really a security for us all. And it was just fun, to be in a family like I was in. I've enjoyed my childhood a lot.
Can you tell me about your brothers and sisters?
Okay, I had 5 brothers and 2 sisters. And 2 of my sisters were older than I am. I'm the 6th person in a family of 8 children. And there were 2 little brothers below me. And so the 3 of us spent a lot of time together. And also I spent quite a bit of time with my brother Gene, who was just a little older. We're the 2 that got into a lot of mischief together, like smoking behind the back, things like that. And we had to get around that so the mama wouldn't smell the smoke that we had in our breasts when we came home. But it's fun to do that. I think you grew up better that way.
I understand too that you have family members that are religious.
Yes, my mother had 3 sisters who were nuns here in this monastery, and my father had 1 sister who was a sister in this monastery. And then I had a sister, Sister Bede. Well, she was Christine, and when she came to the convent, I stole her name. And when I came to the convent, my name was Mary before that. Then I had 1 cousin here, Sister Frances Teresa. And I think that we had a lot of cousins of sisters in other states, like in Indiana and Illinois, where Mama came from.
You also have a brother who was called to live the priesthood.
Right, that was Father. He was Tony, and Anthony. Of course, we called him Tony, and he entered the monastery at Subiaco when he finished high school. Then he went right into the abbey. And he was a priest for 60 years. He had celebrated his 60th anniversary in May, and then he died in the same year. It was 2009.
And that was Father Placidus?
That was Father Placidus,
How old were you when you realized you wanted to be a sister of St. Scholastica? And I think you already told when you entered the monastery at 16. But how old were you when you first thought of religious life?
Well, as far as I can remember, I thought about being a sister. I suppose it was living in the environment of sisters and priests, monks, because I never thought of anything else. I guess maybe I got it in my mother's womb. I don't know. Now that sounds like John the Baptist, doesn't it?
I love it.
But I don't want to be that presumptuous. But I never thought of anything else. I remember once thinking, I wish I would want to do something different. I think it might be interesting to do something different. But it always came back to me that I was going to be a sister. And that's all I ever thought about. And then we were taught by the nuns from this community, Sister Florence and Sister Cordelia and Sister Marian, and they were really cut-ups. They did all kinds of funny things, but they were wonderful teachers, and they were really business in school, but out of school. That's when we had fun with the sisters. They even shot little firecrackers at us one time in their house at us. We used to go down and help them clean their house. They had a little sisters' home near the school, and we'd go down and help them clean. And one time as we came in, all of a sudden went this big pop, pop, pop went, and we didn't know what was going on. And they had little bitty firecrackers about that big, and they shot them at us. But they were a lot of fun. They really were serious with their education. and then they taught us a lot of things.
What are some of the ministries you've been involved in?
Well, first of all, I taught school for 7 years, and I started out in Dixie, a little town down in Arkansas, not too far from Little Rock. And then I really didn't feel that I was called to be a teacher. I loved children, but somehow I just didn't feel that that was my place. And then I came home and worked in the kitchen for about 3 years. I was in charge of the convent kitchen here. We called it convent then. I liked that. I really did. I loved it. I was scared of the job at first, but I really loved it. Then I was sent to Boonville, Missouri, as the director of the dietary department up there. And I did that for 1 year. That was really a good job. But while I was there in the kitchen, in my spare time, I would go up and help the sisters with their work. So then I got interested in nursing. So I asked Mother Jane Francis if I could be a nurse. And she said, oh, yes, she said, we need nurses. So then the next year I went into nurse aid, and Sister Frances Hucker trained me. And that was an interesting experience because I didn't know anything about nursing. And she was a wonderful person and a wonderful nurse. I was in nursing for 30 years, and after 30 years of nursing, I applied for a job at St. Vincent's Infirmary in Little Rock, and I kept thinking about it, and I thought, well, I think I was 59 years old then, and I thought, well, I'm getting older. Nursing was getting harder and faster. Instead of taking that job at Little Rock, I went into pastoral care, and I did CPE up in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And that was one of the best things I think I ever did in my life because it was a good transition from nursing to another place in a hospital where the pace was much slower. And we just took care of a lot of the needs of a lot of people. And that was a wonderful, gratifying work.
There's a special name for the group of women you entered with. Can you tell me about that?
We were named the Hollywood Crowd, or we gave ourselves that name because I'll tell you why. When we were invested, that is, we went in and got our coif and white veil and all this. We walked in as brides of Christ with white and a big, nice white veil. And after the service, one of the priests who was in the sanctuary, he said, well, Hollywood didn't miss anything when those girls went to the convent. So we are the Hollywood Crowd, and we went through life being called the Hollywood Crowd. And I'm the only one left now of the Hollywood Crowd.
What would you like to tell young women today who are seeking a vocation?
Well, first of all, Kimberly, I think I would like to say to them that if they're thinking about it, if they have any idea that they might like it, come and try it. Don't wait around because you don't have to stay if you're coming to this place here or any community, but try it out. Don't just wonder. Just come and come into a monastery and see what it's all about. And that's what we are encouraging now. I know, Sister Kimberly, you're the vocation director, and you're having a retreat next week. So that's good for a lot of the girls could come because it's a good life. It really is. It's a different life. It's a life where you're free to do your own prayer life. You can live a good prayer life because you're not like a mother who is a mother of a lot of children or of any children. That's where her responsibility is. And that's a wonderful vocation. Marriage is a wonderful vocation. And I encourage people who are getting married to make a really sacred thing out of that because that is a wonderful vocation. And I think that's where vocations come from, the home, really. But you can have more time for spirituality and for reflection, meditation, and then from there you can give of yourself. Like in nursing, we could be there 24 hours, whereas if we had a nurse who was a mother, she had to work her 8 hours and be home with her family. So the sisters could fill in, and so we could really give ourselves to the care of the poor and of the sick. And also teaching was the same thing because so many of the immigrants that came here to Arkansas where we started teaching, they would not have had an education. So I think that sometimes maybe you young women who might be thinking about the religious life, it's not all work and it's not all penance and it's not all drab and it's not all this. It's what you yourself can put into it also. And I don't think that God wants us to be sad and stern looking and all this. I mean, sometimes you see, when I was a kid, I remember that I looked at the statue of St. Benedict and I thought, why do you look so stern? And his statues did. But that was somebody's idea of the way he looked. I don't think he was that way because of what he says in the rule. He says a lot of beautiful things about how he loves people and things. So, and Saint Scholastica kind of too. And I think once I said that something about that, and my brother, Father Plaster, said, he said, I thought the same thing when I was a kid.
Thank you so much for sharing your vocation story with us today. And I'm certain that many young women will be inspired by hearing how God has called you to this monastic way of life.
Well, thank you, Kimberly, for asking me to do this, and I enjoy doing it, and I hope that I can inspire someone. And it's a good life. It's a wonderful life.
Well, thank you so much, Sister Christine. You are a blessing to us.
Well, thank you, and so are you, Kimberly. And I love you, and God bless you very much.